Hey guys, this is going to be my last video for the Dragonflight Season 1 Mythic Plus walkthroughs. This one will be on Nokhud Offensive, the longest dungeon, the most brutal dungeon, only because of so much knowledge required. This is going to be a long video for sure, so hang in there if you're in it for the long haul. Otherwise you can skip around and I'll timestamp every section on the video. So this is the first dungeon they've ever done where it's like an open world, takes up an entire zone kind of thing, and they're trying to encourage you to use the dragon flying to get around. So the first thing you're going to do is hop on your dragon flying mount. You have to use one of the mounts, and you're going to head toward the Granyth boss on the map. So kind of the meta for dragon flying, at least on beta, it might change on live when you have more dragon flying talents, but for now you want to just double jump twice so you have lots of air, and then use the dash ability for your third point of energy. And you can see the points of energy down here at the bottom. And you want to fly into these tornadoes to lift you up in the air a little bit as you go. So it'll kind of give you a lift and some speed bonus every tornado you hit. So I'm landing in a specific spot here. You can see on the map that there's 3 dudes around this boss that you have to kill eventually. These are like the primary targets. And this happens around all 3 of the first bosses. So you want to take out this trash at least to clear the boss out and make him available, and then fight him. So in this area, you're killing the bare minimum of trash. But I want to fight this pack first because it patrols around this whole inner ring, and it becomes pretty dangerous with the 3 main packs that you have to kill. Like these are the 3 main packs over here. So you want to take these out first. So I'm landing right here on purpose, and this is the first pull. There's going to be a lot going on in every single pull in here, and hopefully this gets toned down, but I'll talk about every single ability as best I can, and just retain what you can from the video. So, first of all, these longbowmen, you have to center the pull around these because they never move. Unless you're a DK, you can grip them around, or if you have like some kind of minor knock like Ring of Peace, you can move them, but that's about it. They shoot at random people, and they also have a frontal. And on top of that, this is actually a horn sounder. So it's still an archer mob. This one actually moves a little bit, but I was talking about the longbow mob on accident, actually. So this is the horn sounder. It does the same shoot ability. It shoots random players, but this one does not have a frontal. Instead, it just has a stunnable cast that you have to watch out for. That gives a 50% damage bonus to the group if it's not stopped. There it is. Rally the Clan is going off right now. So I gripped that to stop it. That was the end of that. The Plane Stomper mob, it used to have a frontal cleave, and you'll notice that any of these giant centaurs will have this frontal cleave buff on them right here. It's not here on this one, so they did remove it from one of the centaurs. But almost every big centaur in this dungeon has a massive just auto cleave on its auto attack. But instead, the Plane Stompers just have the one kick that you need to do in these pulls to stop their AoE damage. They also have a War Stomp. Okay, so this is the second pull. This is the first like required pack around the boss. This is it's on the mini map, as you can see up there. The longbowmen are the focus here. You want to be able to group these as best you can. Since I'm a DK, I'll grip one over probably to the closest spot to the inner ring right here, because there's another massive patrol that patrols around this area, and you definitely don't want to pull them with anything else. So I'm going to stack on this longbowman, and if you're not a DK, the only thing you can really do is walk into the pack and let them kind of inch toward you a little bit on pull. After they do their initial movement, they plant for the rest of the pull. So I grip them over. This is where I want to tank the pull at because of the giant patrol, like I said. Move out for War Stomp, and then move back in while also facing this guy away from the group if you can. You can see this Lance Master. If I target him, I should target him in a second. You can see on this Lance Master's frame, this is his frame, you can see that cleave buff right there. So all the big centaurs have that, and if they have that, then they just auto cleave anything in front of them when they swing at the tank. So be careful of those. And that typically means they're immune to CC as well, if they're those kinds of big mobs. So the Lance Master is pretty much the same mob as the Plane Stomper. The War Spears, I didn't talk about them yet. They're in lots of these pulls, but they basically bleed the tank. They have a stacking bleed on the tank. It's not the worst bleed in the world, but it does stack, and you probably should be aware of it. And they also leap to a ranged player and give them a bleed as well. So the more war spears, the more damage your range is going to take in each pull, on top of the random shoots from these longbowmen. So what I did here is I went over, and you can fly to the next pack, by the way, in here as well. It's kind of a little small time save. But I'm pulling this 3-pack into this second Lancemaster pack. And I wouldn't advise doing a third longbowman with the 2 that are in this pack, I think. Unless you have something like grips, which I do. And even then, this is kind of sketchy. I mean, there's lots of frontals. All the longbowmen do this multi-shot frontal toward the tank, which you can sidestep, but it is really dangerous. Like that one I actually faced toward the group, so I didn't do this pack very well in this video. I was experimenting. Even with grips, I think doing all 3 of these longbowmen together is probably not a good idea. I think in reality you would want to CC the longbowmen, pull the other 2 mobs over, and then chain the 3rd longbowman when these 2 die or something. So now I finally have the pull in the right position. All 3 longbowmen are facing this direction away from the players, and the big guy is cleaving this direction as well. So there's no way that anyone over here will get hit by the multi-shots or the cleave. But that took so long to group that it probably wasn't the play. Also, the longbowmen do that rain of arrows, the small swirlies on the ground. Just something to watch out for. So yeah, the only kick in this whole area is from the big centaurs in each pack. The Planestompers or the Lancemasters do the shout. Everything else is just a stunnable or disruptible cast. And then the last mob that I haven't mentioned in this area is the Beastmaster. And these are the other important stops. So they cast a, it's like a hunt prey ability. I'll have to watch for it. I can't remember the name at the moment. I think it's Hunter's Mark. So they mark someone, and then they send their bird after. There it is, hunt prey. So now after he marked someone, he's trying to hunt prey them. And if you stun this cast, then it doesn't go off and it doesn't recast for a while. But if it gets off, then it sends the bird to someone. The bird does like triple damage and hits them really hard and bleeds them, I think. Let's see what happens. So yeah, Learn just got the debuff from the bird. That's the hunt prey. So what you probably want to do is assign a melee to watch the Beastmaster and stop that hunt prey cast. At the same time as the... If there's a horn sounder. If there's a horn sounder in the same pack, yeah, there's one right here. The other person or the other melee or tank or something should stop this horn sounder's cast, and then whoever else can just kick the Lancemaster. That's the general rule of thumb for these packs for stops. And I've said this in all my other videos, but I will put an auto marker in the description, and it'll greatly help identify which mobs need to be stopped. This place has a ton of mobs in the auto marker though. It's very daunting. Alright, so now that all 3 Lancemasters are dead, we're at 20% trash. The first boss is coming down. That's the big patrol I talked about earlier. Go back a frame. You can see it out here running. It's humongous. I don't think you ever want to pull that on accident. You may even want to pull it on purpose in like in a pug or something. Maybe drop some other packs later. But it's a huge pat. Alright, so this is Granyth, the first boss. Not too scary for tanks. It's a very big control fight. So the whole goal of this fight is to not let the adds that he summons break the ballistas. So this Tectonic Slamp, this is a side note, the Stomp sends you in a big knockback. But since I'm a DK, I decided to just tank it and press Death's Advance so I didn't get knocked back. I was testing that, and it hit me for like half my health on a 15, so be careful of that on higher keys. These Saboteurs are the main problem in the fight. They'll run at the ballistas and try to disable them. And they also run very fast. So if you can see, we're CCing it when it gets to the middle of the boss's hitbox, and trying to just passively cleave it as best we can. But since they're kind of healthy and they move really fast, we have to actually focus them down. So here's another one. Having a Blood Decay for this dungeon is insanely good, by the way. You can grip and Chains of Ice all these Saboteurs constantly. You can group the Longbowmen better than any other tank can in the beginning. And lots of other good stuff. DK is just pretty good right now in general. But yeah, so basically your whole job as the tank this fight is to try to control the saboteurs. Someone in the group needs to man the ballistas. And you can kind of tell, like I'm not turning my camera around, but you can tell the active ballista is the one behind us because the saboteurs are running that direction. Wherever they're running is the ballista that you need to protect. So that's the... And the mechanic there is the ballistas have to remain active so that when the boss starts casting Eruption, I think he's doing right now, there's Eruption, the healer or someone ranged, probably the healer in most cases, needs to be at the ballista here at the start of this cast and click it so that it stops this cast. This is almost a one-shot on a 15, and any higher level or tyrannical, I'm sure we would wipe on this if we didn't get the cast off in time. So there's the Lance ability, you saw that on the screen right there. The boss got hit for 5% of its health for every ballista that gets fired off. And he's stunned for a few seconds. I don't think there's a damage amp on the boss though. So here comes the next saboteur. You can now see that the saboteur is running that direction. So pull the boss toward that ballista a little bit if you can, and then keep the saboteur centered on the middle of the boss's hitbox. Somewhere in like this general area if possible. That area is like where all AoE spells will cleave off of the boss onto the ad, and so it's always just a good idea to put ads there if you can on any given encounter. And this is going to be something where I can improve at this a lot. Like I'm sure I could tank this better at looking at my own gameplay here. So one thing I'm trying to do constantly is stay in melee range of these saboteurs to damage them myself, but what I should probably be doing is dragging the boss, being like over here right now and dragging the boss on top of the saboteur so that he is always on top of it. And even though I don't get uptime that way, my party will get lots more uptime on both the boss and the ad. Because there's a lot of spells that don't cleave. Like let's say the ad's right here and the boss's hitbox is way over there. This Fury is probably not going to hit the boss if the monk is standing right here, or any kind of other like short cleave ability that hits like that kind of range, you know. This would be like a tank control, tank mastery kind of fight. Not a very scary one though for tanks. You can see that the lance hit the boss there, it hits him for 5% like I said. If it's near the end of the fight, if the boss is under 5%, you can just fire the javelin and it'll kill him. Alright, so that's the first boss. We are now flying to the second boss, and this is the Raging Tempest area. I'll let you observe my beautiful dragon flying skills. On this one, I think I'm going to land at a spot on purpose as well. This is so that I can fight one of the harder packs first, while I know everyone probably has CDs. The good thing about movement dungeons like this is that after you move, most people are going to have their CDs right here. So I land on top of this waterfall. And you can see on the map there's more of these crucial ads that you have to kill. There's 4 in total in this area instead of 3. And there is a lot going on in these pulls as well. Shocker. So this Primal Storm Speaker, if you do nothing else, just remember that this mob is the kill target and the kick target. So burn this guy, put all kicks on him if you don't want to coordinate anything else. And as soon as he's dead, then the pull is significantly easier. The totem is the next thing you should probably worry about. Anyone that can damage totems without losing a lot, like I don't think you can put dots on totems still, although I hope they change that. But anyone that can actually damage them should probably hit them first. And that'll save some AoE damage throughout the encounter. These arcing strike mobs, there's 2 arc blades right here. These are what you have to worry about as the tank. So you don't want to tank everything directly on the totem for several reasons, but the main reason is because of these arcing blades. When they hit the tank with their special ability, it'll cleave to anybody within like 6 yards of you, so like that big around your character. So I'm trying to stay away from the totem where the melee are probably going to be. And as soon as I see Arcing Blade come out, I'll like move out just a little bit if I can as well. The basic cast that these Storm Speakers and the Storm Callers do is called Storm Bolt. It does chunk pretty hard, it hits a random player. But honestly, there's a lot going on and you have to stop some more important things first. The Totemic Overload cast that the big guy is casting, this is the named unique mob. think he's called Stormcaller or something. Every one of them is called Stormcaller so-and-so. Yeah. That causes the totem to like emit this AoE on the group. And so once the totem is dead, then he stops trying to do totemic overload. Let's see if that one actually did damage after the totem died. Curious. So the totem died, he's casting overload. And it did. It still did damage even though the totem was already technically dead. So the totem was still despawning when it happened. But now that the totem's dead, you can also see this lightning puddle on the floor. That does a lot of damage if anyone steps in it. So that's another reason why I'm taking the pack like right here instead of directly on top of the totem. And also, there's just a lot going on. Alright, so now that you've heard all that, let's back up and just watch the poll again. So the main kick target's the Storm Speaker. Any extra kicks can go on Stormcaller Zari, but this Squall that's here is the other mechanic that I haven't talked about. And the Squall is very low health, but is also dangerous. And will just spam cast on people until it's dead. So Surge just hit Luigi for half his health from the Squall. So as you go into a pull, if you don't have a Warlock, which Warlock can just negate this mob completely by banishing it for the whole pull, and then it disappears when the Stormcaller goes away. But you probably want to burn the Squall and then kill the totem after the Squall. Once the Squall dies, the Primalist mob, the main mob that I talked about, will attempt to summon a new Squall every few seconds after. So any second now he'll probably do it. That's the Primalist Storm Speaker, although he's about to die here. Tempest is another cast he does. You definitely don't want that to go off, because it just left a massive dot on the group. You can see on the frames. And does AoE damage. God, there's so many abilities, man. I don't even know. I've ran this dungeon like 10 times, and I still have to watch the VODs to like realize how many abilities there actually are happening. But the moral of the story is in this area, make sure you lock down the Primalists and tank the mobs slightly off the totems. So now I'm Dragonflying. I skipped those two mobs that were in the way of this walk-up. These two mobs right here are banned. Storm Shields. They're worth some decent count, but their abilities are very annoying. And I pulled two of them here, and these should be the only ones I pull on purpose, I think. So those little dudes that patrol aren't too dangerous. I don't really think they do anything. But we've got two Storm Shield mobs here. These are new mobs. Those are the same mobs that I just skipped, and this Odo kind of mob. So first I should say the Kodo mob is bugged a little bit right now. It is fixating the healer the entire pull because of healing threat, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully they fix that before live, but if they don't, just be aware of that. But he shouldn't be doing this. It has a threat table and it should just be attacking me. So make sure you kick Thunderstrike on this guy. I think it just hits pretty hard on a random player, or maybe it's his current target. The Primal Storm Shields used to have a Shield Bash ability, but they don't anymore, luckily. And then the main thing this guy does that you have to be aware of is Chain Lightning. So he's targeting Tettles with Chain Lightning, the Feral. And as soon as it hits him, if he's not 10 yards away from the group, like let's say he was over here, then that probably wouldn't chain to Pepe, or to the DH. Yeah, that's Pepe right there. But since he is in the group, I think this Chain Lightning hits the entire group. Let's see. Boom. So yeah, Chain Lightning does very high damage, even on a 15. And then run out of this Thunderclap, obviously. Pick the mob, and that's about it. So if he wasn't fixating on the healer there, then that would have been fine. And then these Primal Storm Shield mobs basically just cast a shield that's purgeable every few seconds. And you can either purge it or burn through the shield. If you don't burn through the shield, even if there's a little bit left, it blows up and damages the group. There's a Storm Shield right there. It got purged and it died. The purges are what makes that annoying. If you have lots of purges, you could probably pull those two mobs that I skipped with no problem. So this is the next Stormcaller group. This one's got an Arc Blade. You can see another Arc Blade. Those are the mobs that do the Chain Lightning effect around the tank. There's a totem as usual, and then there's the Stormcaller mob. I don't think this one has a Primalist in it. No, it doesn't. This is a pretty easy one compared to most. So in this pack, just kick Stormbolt. You put all kicks on Stormbolt and just move out for the Arcblade cast. Stormcaller will cast the Totemic Overload. I think he already did once. There's the Arcing Strikes on me. Take the cast there. Here's another Totemic Overload. Boom. AoE damage. And what he does when that happens also is, even though the Totemic Overload hurts the group, it does spawn these orbs. And the orbs actually give you a damage buff. I think it's like 5% damage and something else on the buff as well. So maybe the play is to leave the totem up if you can live the overload. But only if you're controlling literally everything else in the pool. Which there's a lot to control. So that might be just like a really, really high key strat, but we'll see. Alright, so I flew over to this third Stormcaller pack. There's 2 more on the map you can see up here. I'm mousing over them to mark them with my auto marker. And then I'm looking at everything. There's a Squall in this pack. And a Primalist. I'm pretty sure there's always a Squall when there's a Primalist. So that's like the paired mobs. Kind of like the Beastmasters and the birds in the first area. You got the Stormcaller mini-boss that we've talked about. Yeah. The Primalist Stormspeaker is what I meant to mark there, not the Primalist Arcblade. These are just more of the same mobs. Make sure you lock down that Primalist. We let Tempest go there again. That's just adding headache for the healer. But I wasn't really sure in this video what to kick. Now I really know. The Stormbolts that both the Stormcaller and the Primalist cast are the same value. So I think the play really is to just put all kicks onto the Primalist and let the Stormcaller mostly free cast, because you're probably not going to have enough kicks to cover both mobs unless you like really, really plan it out. And that's about it. Because if you're kicking the Primalist mob, you're getting Stormbolts as well as Summon Squall and the Tempest cast without having to think about it too much. This is the last pack, very similar mobs. This one has a Primalist as well. And yeah, so on and so forth. So if we had a Warlock, we would just banish this Squall immediately, and it would not only remove the Squall's surge damage, but it would also prevent the Primalist from attempting to summon another Squall here in just a second. Just saves us some kicks too. There's Summon Squall right there. That one it did get off, so I had to taunt the Squall. I gripped to stop the Squall's cast, just because it was about to die. And yeah, now we've just got the Stormcaller and the Primalist left. Oh, this is actually a Primal Storm Shield. Sorry, there's a Storm Shield in this pack. This is a hard pack. But this pack had both the Primalist caster. Let's review it a little bit. So it's got the Primal Stormspeaker, the Dangerous Caster. It's got a Primal Storm Shield, the Purge Shield mob, and also the Stormcaller mini-boss. So this pack's actually kind of nuts. This would be a skip if it wasn't required. Golly, we're 23 minutes into this video and we're not even on the second boss yet. Yeah, so talking about purges, this dungeon purges are pretty important, I think. This and Ruby life pools are like purge mandatory. Hopefully they nerf them down a little bit or add other ways to stop the effects that you would purge, like adding a kick to them instead. That's usually a way to do it. But in the meantime, if you have a purge around, or you can have a purge, try to have them for this dungeon, because this boss also has a nasty purge. So this is the Raging Tempest. He can be very scary for tanks, but he's mostly an AoE damage fight. It is pretty cool design, the way the orbs work, so he'll immediately start summoning orbs throughout the entire fight. Energy Surge just went on the fight. This is a side note. Energy Surge is the buff that he gets that's purgeable. So that gives him like a 100% attack speed and also a nature damage proc on every hit. So he just does like 1.5 times more damage to you, or 2.5 times more damage to you while that buff's on him. Pretty much. Since I have a Demon Hunter, I had some Dispels. But he would be destroying me if not. So that Energy Surge happens like every 10 seconds or so. This is the first big AoE damage portion. Electrical Storm is the main cast of this fight. So the very first one isn't as scary as the rest of them because there isn't a Thunderstrike directly before it. Like here's the Thunderstrike mechanic, that's what we spread for. And then the healer has a few seconds here to recover before the first Lightning Storm. Or Electrical Storm. So here goes the Electrical Storm. This one's the easier one, like I said. You can kind of game these orbs. So every time you pick up an orb, it's like 5% more damage and healing done. And they last for 15 seconds. And if you do it right, you can extend your buff once per phase all the way to 10 stacks. I don't know if everyone in the group can get 10 stacks. But I think everyone has to drop their stacks eventually. So it does refresh to 15 seconds every time you touch an orb. Right now I have 3 stacks. And the only problem is every time the boss lightning strikes, it clears any of the orbs in the lightning strike area. So if you can like grab an orb. Let's say there was one right here. I could run over here and grab it real quick right before this lightning strike without cleaving my buddy right there. And that way I could refresh my buff. But since there's not, I'm probably going to drop my buff. And by buff, I mean debuff. So there's more orbs, more buff orbs. Might be a good idea to give your healer some of these. This is a hard healer fight. And then last but not least, if you move too far out of melee range, the boss will cast a ranged magic attack at you that does very high damage. It is reflectable by warriors, but you can see I like quickly step out to get an orb sometimes. I don't want to be out for too long because I don't want to get hit by that. Whatever the cast is called. Magic attack. Here's another lightning strike. And from here on out, he's doing Electrical Storm right now. And that's pretty important for your healer to know. So on the second Electrical Storm onward, he always does this lightning strike directly before the lightning storm. So you're going to go in, or the Electrical Storm. So you're going to go into this one with low HP on the whole group, which is pretty rough. Boom, and now he's channeling it for 15 seconds. I put AMZ down there to help out a little bit. One thing I didn't ever test is, I don't know what happens when you go into the boss's hitbox. Probably just hurts you a little bit. Or a lot of it. And yeah, that's the whole fight. Rinse and repeat. Make sure someone purges if they can. Make sure you spread and collect orbs at a smart pace. Don't let the orbs hit the boss. If they do, it blows up for damage. And also buffs him instead of you. I think it blows up for damage. Maybe it just buffs the boss. The buffs cap out at 10 stacks on each player. So if you're Blood DK soloing this boss after your whole group dies, you can only get 10 stacks, unfortunately. And that's it. So now we're going to the third boss area. This is the Teera and Maruuk area. If you ever die in this dungeon, you spawn back. Oh, I had the map open. Perfect. You spawn back at the beginning. Up here, I believe. And there are kind of tornado paths to get to every boss. For these two bosses, I think you have to go like around this way or around that way on the tornadoes to get here. But there's a way to get there from the spawn point either way if you ever die. But yeah, we're heading over to Teera and Maruuk right now. And you may want to take a good look at this area because you're going to kill a lot of trash here. So I start at the farthest point where the first required pack is, this one. This is a good start point because this pack has quite a few mobs and also a patrol goes right over it, and so you're probably going to fight 2 packs no matter what you do here. And there's a patrol of 3 birds that you'll see come in. Those birds right there. So I barely missed them, but they'll come in later. So in this area there's a whole nother set of mobs. The desecrated like spirit mobs are the least impactful in the whole area. These birds don't really do anything except frontal. They do have pretty big frontals, but you can just sidestep them. They're not too bad. And I'll just explain as we go here. The Soul Harvester mob is the mini boss, the required mini boss in all these portions, just like the first 2 areas. There's a bunch of those. The Soul Harvesters do this Harvest Soul cast. It throws your buddy's souls somewhere like this far away from the pack. It could be over there, it could be over there. And it's like this wispy effect on the ground. Like they'll see something like that, but it's white. Basically, you won't get it as the tank, but if you ever DPS or heal, I think you do. So that's the Harvest Soul mechanic. You go collect your soul, and then you do full damage again. I think you take ticking damage while your soul is gone as well. There's Shatter Soul. I think you can see the souls going right there. Never noticed that. Yeah, so you can see the Demon Hunter running over there to get his soul. And that's the main mechanic that these guys do, the big guys. The other things they do is this Death Bolt volley. Make sure any remaining kicks get this volley when you can. It's not the end of the world if it goes off. It hits you for like 30% of your health. Like, so that is the last resort kick if there's nothing else significant in the pull. These birds, again, they don't do much except frontal. That's fine. We like that. We like avoidable frontals. These two Corruptor mobs are hard to move. They basically just cast on the tank the entire time, this Death Bolt cast. And then in between those casts, they have a channel where they put stuff on the ground that you have to avoid. And that's these orbs right here. So if you stun them on their channel, then they stop doing these orbs. But honestly, they're pretty low priority stops because there's a lot going on in this area. I actually wasn't even trying to do this pull in particular. I was trying to do these 3 birds on that first pull. And then I was planning to do these 2 caster mobs with a 3-pack that patrols pretty close to here. And it is that pack right there. It's running away. It goes like in a pretty wide range around this area and comes all the way over here and then all the way back. But I missed their patrol. And so I should have just been patient and waited for them. But since this is a 15, stuff died quick. So we're going to end up doing a pretty janky pull here. This is another pretty basic pack. If there's ever just like one centaur with a bunch of spirits, that's like one of the easier packs. So you know you can probably do this with another pull. This Beast Caller is something I haven't talked about yet. And let's see what he does. So I'm just going right away. I'm pulling in. There's a Beast Caller. There's 2 Beast Callers total in the pull now since there's one over here. And there's a Death Speaker. The Death Speakers are probably going to be the mob that you're controlling as the tank, I'd say. It has a kick that you want to get and a stun that you want to get. So either you or a melee can stick to a Death Speaker and just control it the whole pull. These colors also require a kick and a stop as well, I believe. These colors also have this heavy slash. That's about to hit me for just physical damage. I don't think it leaves a debuff. Woo! So the Beast Caller cast, yeah, so the cast actually went off on start, and that's what summoned these 3 new mobs that just came in. I don't think they're worth count. Summoned mobs are usually not worth count. So you don't really want to let it cast because it just adds more to worry about in the pull. This giant channel is done by the Death Speaker, and that's why I think a tank or a melee should control this mob. Chant of the Dead. I think it just does big damn if you stand in it. So either move out of it or stun it, and it won't recast. So now this pull is just ridiculous. I didn't mean to do a triple pull, but it ended this way. The main stops, though, are the Death Speakers and the Beast Callers. Everything else isn't too bad. You can also see the Beast Caller casted Devour Spirit, and it killed this bird over here and gave him a massive damage buff. So I think they can cast that. They used to only be able to cast it beneath 50% health. I think they can cast it whenever they want now, but it's just something to be aware of. There's another cast that got off, so 3 more Balakars spawned. I'm using Death Grips and Taunts right now to try to get them off my group. And yeah, that's the end of that triple pull. So we actually did it, but that would have been pretty scary in a hierarchy. So I'll just chain these Balakars since they don't really do anything. Or I was trying to chain, and then my Assassination Rogue told me not to, I think. Lol. This is another required pack. This is the Soul Harvester. Anytime there's a Soul Harvester, you know the people's souls will get taken, land somewhere out here. And then also he'll do the volleys that you have to kick. This pack also has a new mob, the Mythic. The Mystic may seem like it has a kick that you want to worry about, but that's actually lowest priority because it doesn't do much if it gets off. So it should cast pretty quick here. Oh, it got corroded. That's why I didn't cast. So there it is. It's casting Swift Wind. If you can see, it's kind of hard to see at the moment. Right there. Swift Wind just buffs itself with like a 20% haste buff. You don't have to worry about it very much. It used to be an AoE buff, but since it's only itself now, it's not bad. However, if they changed it to being AoE for whatever reason, probably kick it. There's a Death Speaker in this pack. That's what I would stop as the tank. So I'd kick Grasp of the Dead here, and then I would stun or grip or disorient the non-kickable cast it does afterward. And there's actually 2 Death Speakers. So in this pack in particular, my auto marker will mark these, but since there's 2, I would man one of these, and I would have my, let's say, Rogue man the other one in this case. So both of us are on the Death Speakers. Nobody has to kick the Mystic. And then all other kicks can go on to Shadow Bolt Volley on the Soul Harvester. One thing nice about this area is that none of the big mobs frontal cleave. So it's just all about control. Alright, so we're moving down into the valley here. We've killed 2 required packs, and now we're just going to fight a bunch more trash. This is the best area to get your trash count. All the mobs here aren't quite as scary as the rest of the dungeon. So I'm doing some double pulls and just pulling a lot of trash constantly. Let's see what we got here. Back up a little bit. So we got the Corruptors. Those just cast on the tank, but any spare kicks can go into those. We got Death Speakers, so tank or melee stick on that. We got the Mystic that you don't have to worry about, and then a Risen Warrior. The Risen Warrior basically just Mortal Strikes the tank, so 20% healing reduction on the tank. Otherwise, it's not too scary, but it's just something to be aware of as a tank. So I'm chaining these in. I got another Beast Caller over here. So we got 2 Beast Callers and 1 Death Speaker now. So that's 3 required kicks. Semi-required, I guess. The Corruptors are channeling those orbs on the ground right there. Just dodge those. And that's about it. This is another pretty basic pull. 1 Death Speaker and just a bunch of fairly uneventful mobs. Not totally uneventful, but less impact than the rest of the mobs. We got a couple Corruptors, we got a Mortal Strike, we've got the Death Speaker stops, and then we've got a Mystic. I think 2 Mystics in here. Mystics might be the easiest mobs though, to be fair. So that pack I was just looking at is the last one I want to pull. That's going to be like the what to kill during the boss RP kind of thing. So we can start the boss RP once these 2 required packs are dead, and then during that time you can kill this pack. So I'm gonna keep going away from the boss for now. I'm going up here to this far required pack. Let's see what this one's got. It has a Beast Caller, a Death Speaker, and the Soul Harvester to worry about. So I'll stop the Death Speaker. I'll assign someone to stop the Beastmaster here, and everybody else kicks the volley when possible. I kick Grasp there, dodge the frontals, casting Devour Spirit. It was stopped by the melee. So the Devour Spirit cast is the stoppable cast on the Beast Caller, and that's why you put a melee on that mob. So both the Beast Caller and the Death Speaker have a kick and a stop. That's why you want melee to stop those. Melee generally have more stops in general, and also have a shorter kick that can just handle those mobs better. So I stopped that Chant of the Dead with Death Grip there. And that's about it. Got our soul, might get off. Does, so people have to go get their souls. You can see their debuffs go away once they pick them up here. This is a pretty easy pack as well. It was just one centaur with a bunch of spirit mobs. It's a beast caller as well, so one kick and one stop. Everything else here is just got frontal cleaves, or frontals that are avoidable rather. And this is the last pack I need in this direction, so after this I'm going to fly back to that last required pack. We're at 85% count at this point. And we're trying to finish this area at around 95% count. Because the last two mobs before the first boss are all you want to do in that last area, and they're worth about 5%. So here's the last required mini boss. This one's got a Soul Harvester, a Mystic, a Corruptor, a Warrior. Warriors do the Mortal Strike, the short Mortal Strike. And I think a second Corruptor, yeah. This one's not too bad, honestly. So since there's no Beast Callers or Death Speakers, you can actually just kick the Corruptors. And you shouldn't have to worry about the Mystics. There's a Mortal Strike going out. It's actually a 10-second Mortal Strike. It's 30% reduced healing. I thought it was 20. I think that's a different Mortal Strike. So there's the boss. I just told my group to someone go start the RP. They just basically have to walk into the boss's area and the bosses will start talking. And then in the meantime, we're going to go over here and fight one more pack. This one's got two Corruptors, a Warrior, which is a Mortal Strike mob, and then a Mystic. So this is a pretty chill pull on its own. You could probably combine this with something, but I'm not sure what I would want to combine it with yet. Since this area is so big and so open, it's actually kind of hard to do double pulls. It's cool that it's open, but it's kind of deceivingly not open, since you have to fly and kill so many required packs throughout the dungeon. There's also just so much trash you have to kill. Alright, so now we're flying back to the first boss. You can see we're at 94% count. I think we're actually good on count here. And this is the Teera and Maruuk boss. So I started by pulling to the left boss because that's the one that doesn't move on pull. You always want to stack this boss as fast as you can. I wasn't doing a great job in this run, but let me show you what you should do now that I know. So I stack them, right? As soon as you see this boss start to cast Spirit Leap, that always happens at the same time as this Roar cast. You can see which direction she's facing, and that's the direction she's going to leap to. You might not be able to see the ground effect that's off the screen here because you're in the tank POV. But just watch the direction she's leaping and immediately start going that way. I think I just drew a dick on accident, but whatever. So I should have ran out the other way. Stack the bosses as fast as you can because the longer they're not stacked, they get this stacking buff that makes them do more damage. Oh, I actually pointed to the wrong buff. It is... Well, we'll see it again in a second. So here's the Spirit Leap. As they jump out, they start getting this buff right here. This 2-stack blue buff. So that gives them like 10% more damage per second that they're out of range from each other. And so these quick shots that they're firing off are going to hurt quite a bit. So you want to minimize those as best you can by grouping up faster. Brutalize is the tank hit. This is from the melee boss. It actually doesn't do too much damage. It's a physical hit for once. I mean, it's like rare these days to have a physical tank buster, but there it is on me. It hit me for like half my health. Probably will get pretty scary in higher keys though. And yeah, that's about it. So there's the Spirit Leap. Again, watch where she's facing. Just start pre-moving if you can. And so on and so forth. There's a couple more mechanics. Here's the next Spirit Leap. This one actually did a good job of heading toward her right off the bat. And she only got like 2 stacks there, I think. There's a Then overlap here where one casts the knockback, the wind knockback, which is kickable. So kick her as soon as you can is when that happens. And then try to move as a group around this guy. So maybe move like, maybe like form a system with your melee to move clockwise around this guy casting Earth Splitter. Because you can't move over these puddles after that. They hurt quite a bit. If you even just like roll across them real fast as a monk, you'll take a very large amount of damage. It's the next Roar Leap combo. Now I'm starting to get the hang of it in this video so I can tell where she's going. Here's a Brutalize hit. Just gonna Death Strike right after. I think I parried that one actually. And then Gale Arrow, I don't think I talked about this yet, but what my group did here is they actually stacked in one spot. They still only take 1 damage event worth of Gale Arrow, but all the tornadoes go out in 1 bloom after that, so it's not like they have to dodge after. So it's pretty good for casters if everyone can stack like that. And it didn't matter that it hit me because I'm a tank. But it did spread out the bosses, so you do want to stack with them as a tank if you can. But yeah, Gale Arrow is probably what DPS and healers have to defensive in this fight. The quick shots are also kind of scary, but that's going to be like if you're getting quick shot twice in a row on you, press a defensive as well. That's probably your plan for this fight. Tanks just use defensives on the brutalized tank buster when you can. That's it. We are now headed toward the last boss area. And just for reference on the map, the way we did this dungeon, and probably the way you're going to do it too, is go this way, down through here, and then hit the last boss there. You have to defeat these 3 bosses before going to the last boss. So one thing to note is you can't dragonfly past like this mark on the ground, this area. As soon as you get there, the game will knock you off your mount basically and put you somewhere in these fighting mobs. So you probably want to land like over here where there's no mobs, or I think over here is okay, somewhere in the river down there, right there. That's a safe zone to land without being stuck in combat for a few seconds. But I landed in a bad spot to show you, on purpose of course. So I'm stuck in combat with these like RP mobs. These don't give count, I'm pretty sure they still don't. All these mobs are fake until these 2 start the actual mobs in this area. And on top of that, you don't even want to pull these because they're all really not worth it in my opinion. So you can mount up here, just make sure you don't dragonfly, you'll get instantly knocked off your mount. I tried to skip by this direction, but they have a pretty wide aggro radius, so you definitely can't slip by here unless you have like Mind Soothe or Stealth and Distract or something. But the good news is you can go up that way around the fence or up that way around the fence, which my buddies did ahead of me. I was just trying this. The defenders, if you do fight these, they both frontal cleave on their auto attacks. So you can see the icon above their heads. They have a mandatory melee cooldown kick called Bloodletting Scream or Shout. Bloodletting Shout, it does a massive fear and it kills you. And they also have a War Stomp, so they're very annoying mobs. 2 mandatory kicks with a pack of 2 of them with a bunch of annoying stuff going on. Luckily I actually pulled some of this stuff in this run on accident so I can show you what it does. These patrols, for the rest of this area, there's all these patrols that you want to avoid. Or if you're feeling brave, you can fight these. They're all the same kind of mobs as the first area, except for the Nokhud Defender, which I just talked about. And then this mob is the new one, the Nokhud Thunderfist. The Thunderfists also have mandatory kicks. And that's why this area is so rough, because some packs have like 3 to 4 mandatory kicks. And you're going to have to let some other dangerous casts go because of that. And they're not just they're very not efficient to fight because they zone out melee. So right there, I actually tried to Dragonfly on accident. I didn't even try, but I was like floating off the edge of the rock. So the game kicked me off my mount right there. There's the debuff. And for some reason in this spot, it also made my character not able to move, which is just a bug. So I just had to reload. This is 5 days before the expansion launches, by the way. Alright, so now we're just sneaking through the area. If I was patient, or if this patrol goes pretty far. If I was patient and wait for the patrol, I could just go directly through here without pulling this stuff. But I was being impatient and wanted to test this, so we just ended up pulling these mobs. These mobs up here, several of them aren't even worth count. So you probably don't want to do these. But these are the same mobs as the first area of the dungeon. So the Beastmaster does the Hunt Prey cast. And there's 2 Beastmasters, so just stop Hunt Prey, and I think that's about it. Yeah, that's all I do. But yeah, the birds they had gave literally 0 count. Each one of them gave 1% count. Not worth it if you can avoid it. These last 2 mobs that you have to pull. Oh, there's also a Horn Sounder in this pack. The Horn Sounder has that 50% damage buff that you have to stop from the first area. So I just attempted to bring this guy down. He just never moves, like the Longbowman. What a pain in the ass. I hate it when they design mobs like this. But yeah, so these 2 mobs are required now. They weren't required for most of beta, but they pull with the boss if you pull them, and I'd highly suggest not doing that. Unless you're an MDI player. So here we go. Balara and Batok. Balara is the one you should let your group know about. Has this charge. He's about to charge this way. Anyone he hits will knock him back and deal pretty significant damage. Probably be a one-shot on higher keys. But you can aim him into a wall. He does target a random player. So you can tank the mobs where I'm tanking them here, kind of near this wall, and then have them aim star toward the wall. Or bait star toward the wall, rather. There's a charge that wasn't baited, so you see how far he went. You just lose a little uptime on it, that's all. He also casts that swirly on the ground, the spear, you can just avoid that. Ravaging Spear right there. Kick this Blood Curling Scream, that's the same fear cast, I believe. 2 melee kick rotation. Maybe it's a 3 kick rotation. I think it's just 2, but might be 3. But yeah, this is how you should play this pack, probably. Just bait as you can. Has a pretty big hitbox on the knockback, as you saw there. It hit a bunch of us even though we were behind the mob, so make sure you take a step out as it starts its charge. Keep the other mob kicked, and then you're in the clear. As soon as one of these dies, the other one will enrage after a few seconds. So he should be really big here in just a second. Oh, I guess he never enraged. Okay. And this is the last boss. This is Balakar Khan. He doesn't do anything too crazy. The last phase is a little bit more crazy than this. In this phase, he just Rending Strikes the tank and then Savage strikes the tank. He has like a 2-part tank buster, a bleed and then a hit. And then he'll do this mechanic on a DPS or healer where he targets them with spear, throws it at them, they take damage, and then everyone is supposed to be pulled into that one, I believe. This boss is pretty bugged still. 5 days before release, by the way. But he should like throw a spear at you and then charge to like pick up his spear after. So just be careful on this boss. Pop a defensive if you get targeted by the spear. As a DPS or healer. So that's his first phase. That's a bleed phase for the tanks. This is the intermission. He makes all these ads active and he does not leave this phase until all 4 ads die. So the strat here is to probably assign kicks, like initial kicks. Like let's say tank and melee DPS pick up these 2 on the left. Both ranged kick on the right side. As soon as they stack up in the middle, then you can use AoE CCs to stop their casts after that, but they will need an initial kick to get them moving. On high keys, you could hard CC 2 at a time and just fight 2. Kill 2 and then chain the other 2, etc, etc. So here's us doing the proper strategy. People are still dying because there's also swirlies going on. It's hard to see. There's a giant bird in our camera. The boss is channeling. Very fun. This is the last phase now. The boss has some different mechanics. He does this conductive strike. And if this doesn't get dispelled, literally in 1 second, you're going to die. Because now he does Thunderstrike, which does 500% more damage if you have this debuff on you. Something like that. Maybe it's 600. I think I just lived that without getting dispelled. Confused. And then there's a Rending Strike again. I don't think he's supposed to do that in this phase. So there is the proper charge. He did the weapon throw. Then he gripped everyone to him, and then he did a charge in front of him. This, he does a frontal with circles on the group at the same time. This is just a mechanic where you want to drop these circles off at the wall, like over here somewhere. And then move as a group over into a more clear area, because these circles leave behind clouds. So what I should have done in this second phase is pulled the boss over here originally, fought on this wall, and then just moved along this wall for the remainder of the phase. I did this a little poorly in this video, and so we end up actually pulling trash at the very end, because I didn't do the movement quite as well as I wanted to. So there's a conductor strike, there's thunder strike after. Luckily I got dispelled and I lived. Dodge the swirlies while you do this phase. Rending strike, which is weird. I'm pretty sure that's a phase 1 mechanic. There's a spear cast, and then he should charge. That's why you want to tank him here, so that people can bait the circle against the wall. Then he does like a very short charge, and then you have full uptime for melee. This is the proper way to do the boss. At least semi-proper. There's Thunder Strike again. Pretty sure that's just magic damage. At least I hope so. And yeah, so we actually ended up pulling trash here because I got too close to the other mobs. And these trash packs, there's a patrol right there, and there's also the same kind of thing on the other side of the boss room. Those trash packs are the same as the ones we saw when we walked up to this boss room from over there. So if you ever want to fight more mobs, you can also add these into the route, but I would highly suggest just pulling the mobs in the third boss area instead. And yeah, that's the end of this dungeon. Whew. I am absolutely sure I missed something along the way, so if you guys thought of something that I didn't, let me know in the comments for other people to know. And yeah, hopefully everyone's gotten a lot of good info out of my videos this year. Good luck in Season 1, and I'll put an auto marker in the video description for you.